Fyodor Dostoevsky, Crime and Punishment. Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment is not merely a novel of crime, nor simply a tale of punishment. It is a philosophical experiment in narrative form, a psychological excavation of guilt, and a theological meditation on redemption. To read it chapter by chapter is to witness Dostoevsky's deliberate construction of a tragic architecture, one that oscillates between realism and metaphysics, melodrama and philosophy, despair and grace. That I will critique the novel's progression part by part, highlighting both its artistic triumphs and its structural flaws, while situating it within the broader tradition of 19th-century literature and modernist anticipation. Part 1. The Crime as Philosophical Experiment. The opening chapters plunge us into the oppressive atmosphere of St. Petersburg, a city rendered as a labyrinth of poverty, heat, and moral decay. Raskolnikov's alienation is palpable. His cramped lodging mirrors his suffocating psyche. Dostoevsky risks monotony here, lingering on the minutiae of his poverty. But this slow pacing is essential groundwork. The introduction of Marmeladov in Chapter 2, with his drunken confession, is melodramatic to the point of theatricality. Yet the grotesque detail rescues it from sentimentality, and Marmeladov's abject suffering becomes a moral counterpoint to Raskolnikov's intellectual arrogance. The murder itself, spanning chapters 6 and 7, is both brilliant and flawed. Dostoevsky captures hesitation, paranoia, and the grotesque banality of violence with unmatched psychological realism. At the same time, the implausibility of Raskolnikov's luck, the empty apartment, the convenient timing, strains credibility. This tension between realism and contrivance is characteristic of Dostoevsky's narrative style, where the demands of philosophical allegory override the strict logic of plot. Part 2. Fever, delirium, and the birth of suspicion. The aftermath of the murder is rendered through feverish delirium. Dostoevsky fragments Raskolnikov's consciousness, anticipating modernist techniques of stream of consciousness. The repetition of his inner torment can feel excessive, but it mimics the obsessive cycle of guilt. The introduction of Porfiry Petrovich, the investigator, is a masterstroke. His dialogues with Raskolnikov are not merely detective interrogations, but philosophical duels. Porfiry embodies the rational, probing intellect that dismantles Raskolnikov's extraordinary man theory. Yet Dostoevsky risks caricature, portraying him as sly and almost playful. The tension between Porfiry's geniality and his penetrating insight creates some of the novel's most memorable exchanges. These chapters form the intellectual core of the book, where crime is interrogated not by law, but by philosophy. Part 3. Social subplots and melodramatic foils. The Luzin subplot, involving Raskolnikov's sister Dunya, exposes Dostoevsky's weakness for melodramatic villains. Luzin is too flat, a foil rather than a character, embodying crude self-interest without nuance. Yet his presence is necessary to contrast Raskolnikov's lofty theory with base opportunism. The narrative digresses into family drama, and while this risks diluting the central psychological tension, it enriches the social panorama. Dostoevsky insists that crime cannot be isolated from the web of social relations. Poverty, exploitation, and gender dynamics all intersect with Raskolnikov's philosophical rebellion. Part 4. Sonia and the Moral Climax. The introduction of Sonia marks a turning point. She is both powerful and problematic. Dostoevsky idealizes her into a saintly archetype, embodying Christian humility and sacrificial love. Critics have long debated whether Sonia is a fully realized character or merely a symbol of grace. Her dialogue with Raskolnikov, particularly the reading of Lazarus, is heavy-handed yet unforgettable. Dostoevsky insists on the spiritual dimension of crime. The resurrection of Lazarus becomes a metaphor for Raskolnikov's potential redemption. Here the novel risks sermonizing, but it also achieves its moral climax. Sonia's presence shifts the narrative from psychological torment to theological possibility. Part 5. Confession and the Limits of Punishment. The trial and confession sequence is anticlimactic compared to the feverish intensity of earlier chapters. Dostoevsky deliberately avoids sensational courtroom drama, focusing instead on Raskolnikov's spiritual awakening. Punishment, he suggests, is internal before it is judicial. The law is secondary to conscience. Some readers find this disappointing, expecting a dramatic resolution, but Dostoevsky's point is clear. The true punishment is guilt, and the true confession is spiritual rather than legal. Conclusion: the flaws of brilliance. Taken as a whole, Crime and Punishment is less a polished novel than a raw philosophical experiment. Its flaws, melodramatic villains, narrative contrivances, heavy-handed moralizing, are inseparable from its brilliance. Dostoevsky sacrifices elegance for existential urgency. He is not interested in perfect plot mechanics, but in the drama of conscience, the dialectic of nihilism and faith. The novel anticipates modernist techniques, interrogates philosophical theories of morality, and insists on the possibility of redemption. To criticize it chapter by chapter is to see how Dostoevsky builds a tragic architecture. Crime is rebellion, punishment is conscience, redemption is grace. The novel's imperfections are the scars of its ambition, and its brilliance lies in its refusal to be merely a novel. It is a seminar in guilt, a lecture in redemption, and a testament to the human soul's struggle between despair and hope.